Good morning, everybody. As you can tell, I am not MMAC President Tim Sheehy. Tim had a scheduling conflict this morning, and I'm Chris Jenkins, MMAC Communications Director, filling in for Tim today. Welcome to the Business of Metro Milwaukee. Our monthly webinar has two goals: to provide you with insights that help you make better business decisions, and to inform you of the challenges and opportunities to growing the region's prosperity. Today's program is sponsored by United Healthcare. MMAC has partnered with United Healthcare to make it easier to find a health plan that works for your employees and your bottom line. United Healthcare's level funded plan offers coverage for companies with as few as 5 employees, allowing smaller and mid-sized companies to take advantage of rates typically reserved for larger companies, like underwriting for more competitive pricing, better data so you know where your premium dollars are going, a potential surplus if claims are lower than expected, and access to critical illness, accident protection, and hospital indemnity plans to provide further financial security for your employees. In short, it's a great benefit plan to help you recruit and retain talent in this challenging environment. An MMAC affiliated broker can help you receive discounted rates. Contact your MMAC broker or visit MMAC.org to learn more. So we begin today's program with a discussion of the future of the city of Milwaukee. What are some of the challenges we face and what opportunities exist for us to capitalize on? And who better to ask about all this than Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson? Later in the show at 11:30, we'll be joined again by Dr. John Raymond for a healthcare update. As always, we'll take your questions, so enter them in the chat as we go along. Mayor Johnson, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Chris. How are you doing? Glad to be here.
Terrific. Glad to have you here. So you've been in, this is not entirely new to you. You've been in office since December as acting mayor, but what are your initial thoughts on the job you've taken on?
Well, that's an excellent question. And, when I was in office as acting mayor, obviously I was running to be mayor. Right. And at the time, I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, running for mayor was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. That's only eclipsed by actually being the mayor.
Yeah, right.
It is really a challenging, difficult, complex position, very rewarding as well, but one that just is nonstop. No 2 days are the same. There's a lot of hat switching in this job.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of people know your personal story, but for those who don't, let us know a little bit about the journey that got you here.
Yeah, in brief summary, I was born and raised here in Milwaukee, went to Milwaukee Public Schools from kindergarten to 12th grade. I lived in some of the most challenged, roughest neighborhoods in Milwaukee, primarily on the north side. And we had housing instability, and I moved around a ton. So that's why I went to 6 different elementary schools in MPS, from the far northwest side all the way to the south side, being pulled out of schools entirely to go to different schools, a number of times throughout my time growing up. I wasn't able to stay in one school until I got to middle school. And as I was leaving middle school and transitioning to high school, I was recruited into a pre-college program called Sponsor a Scholar that was at the time run by the YMCA of Metropolitan Milwaukee. And I still wear this YMCA wristband with the 4 core values of the YMCA: caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility, to keep me grounded in how I got my start. And so the goal of the program was to get low-income Milwaukee Public School students off to college. And for many of us, we were the first person in our family to go to college. The other part of that program is to get those same young people involved in community service and giving back. And I really fell in love with the service aspect of the program. So I'd get up on the weekends as a teenager helping seniors to rake leaves and shovel snow, and it just continued to snowball with service projects across the U.S., in South America, in Europe, and other opportunities. I knew I wanted to run for office because of 9/11 when I was a kid, and then getting involved in this same program. And I stayed at it, and after I graduated from college, decided to run for office. Lost a couple times at first, but won alderman and went on to be council president, acting mayor, and now mayor.
What was it about 9/11 that inspired you? It's kind of an odd thing to say, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many people made decisions, right, that day. Many people signed up to serve in the the armed services. I would think collectively as a country, all of us came together around, the idea of Americanism. There was a rally around the flag sort of moment. And, I was a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
At the time I had freshly gotten involved again with this YMCA program and providing service to others in the community. And President George W. Bush at the time was at ground zero, and I was captivated watching, what was unfolding there. And I saw this example at the time of, him trying to comfort the country, trying to bring people together during a hard time. And for whatever reason, in my mind as my 14-year-old brain, my desire to serve people through the YMCA program and government sort of meshed together. And that's where I knew that this was my path.
Absolutely. So you talked about all the hats you wear now as mayor. What are some of the challenges you see facing Milwaukee, and what are some opportunities we might be able to take advantage of?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think certainly some of the challenges that we face, not unlike any other major U.S. city, especially right now after the devastating effects of COVID, are the problems that we have with public safety. So that certainly is one that's at the top of the list and one that we're focused on every single day and working to grapple with. Another serious challenge that we have, and MMAC has been an exceptional partner in this, is working with the state government, our partners at state government, to make sure that local governments in this state, particularly the city of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, but all local governments really, at the end of the day, hopefully, have the opportunity to raise their additional revenue, because unfortunately the system that we have is broken. When you look at state shared revenue for Milwaukee, we're receiving about the same real dollars in 2022 when prices and costs for services have increased, and now we've got inflationary pressures as well. We're receiving the same real dollars that we were receiving back in 2003, 2004. It's just not sustainable. And if the state doesn't provide another opportunity, then it puts our ability to deliver services to our residents, to our commuters, to our visitors in serious jeopardy. And so we need some assistance there. And MMAC again has been a tremendous partner in helping us to tell that story to legislators so that we can be in a better position to get additional shared revenue or a local option sales tax that would bring us in line, quite frankly, with every other major city in the United States.
Yeah, and I'd want to add that MMAC wholeheartedly supports this push for legislation that would allow us to impose a very reasonable sales tax increase. It's very unusual for us as an organization to support this, but we really do see the need, and we're very much aligned with you on this. I want to go back to violence. We could spend far more than a half hour on a webinar trying to dissect what's going on right now. But what do you see are some of the root causes that may be causing this, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, Chris, that is a great question, because that's where I spend a lot of my time as mayor, trying to not do what has been done in the past, or at least the perception of that is that, it's a lot of, trimming around the edges, a lot of pruning, as opposed to really getting in there and, addressing the root of the problem. And, I think, there are many stems on the root to the problems with violence that we see. When I look at stability in our families, that's one, and stability in our neighborhoods. And what I mean by that is that, unlike what we used to have in this community, which was access to good paying family supporting jobs that were plentiful, especially in the communities of color, when those jobs dried up and went away, those neighborhoods, the people in the neighborhoods that they live in, got mired in the cycle of poverty, which then leads to violence. I mean, just think about it. I mean, those same neighborhoods that you turn on the 10 o'clock news and you see some terrible tragedy has happened, some violent episode has happened, they used to be stable. And we used to have the highest quality of life for African Americans in the United States when those jobs were present, when those opportunities were plentiful. And we just don't have that right now. So we've got to work collectively as partners, as a community, in order to build up the chances, the opportunities for folks to have a family supporting jobs, not putting so much pressure on folks to work 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. That puts a lot of financial stress on families. And we're able to reduce that financial stress, get folks into family supporting jobs. then they're able to buy their home, right? And if they have kids, they're able to present a stable life to their kids. And so the actions of their young people when they go out into the streets or they go into the schools is different because now they're coming from stable homes. And the neighborhoods that they live in, when you get to a critical mass of that, right? The neighborhoods that they live in with more people having access, they become cohesive. They begin to gel. The neighborhoods are not porous and the people who live there transient. When that happens, when you get the cohesiveness in neighborhoods, that's how you develop relationships amongst neighbors. And that's how you get to true public safety that all of us are yearning for. You can't build that when you've got people literally moving in and out of neighborhoods every 2 months. It's just not possible to happen. And so those are things that we are actively working on in my administration right now in order to be able to tackle. So we get to the root cause of some of the challenges that we've had around public safety.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you talk about all the different tentacles that you can get lost working on right now, because you're thinking about the idea that a lot of companies do have openings right now, but there's a transportation aspect of trying to get out to where those jobs are. There's the issue of out of town investment firms buying housing stock. I mean, I can see why this is a real challenge for you.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are true. And I mean, let's, also, call out this very important issue too, and that, if somebody is extremely ill-tempered, or they're a domestic abuser, they've got a history of criminal activity, they should not have access to a gun. I mean, they just shouldn't. And that's not a crazy partisan thing. Like, it doesn't matter if you are in the city or if you're, in a suburban community, if you're in a rural community. I don't think that, I think, reasonable people would agree that nobody in any of those places should have access to a gun, because what they will do is use that gun to inflict death, harm, or destruction in our neighborhoods or in our communities. And we've got to call that out. And so that's another space where we need our partners in Madison to sit down and come up to some common sense solutions, which, I am very heartened, because I think about those children in Texas that were slaughtered. Literally, like, I've got 3 small kids. I think about it every single day. And just to think that as a society, as with our governments at the federal level and state level, that we just haven't moved the needle enough to make sure that people who nobody wants to have guns, that they shouldn't get them. It's as a citizen and as a parent, not even as a mayor, but in those 2 capacities, it gives me a lot of heartache. So there are things on the social side with access, and economic side with access to family supporting jobs. That's a root cause. But we could also stem the tide of the violence that we see in terms of the shootings that we have, fatal, non-fatal, in the city, if folks who shouldn't have access to guns just simply don't have access to guns.
I don't want to paint an overly dire picture, because, as you noted, every big city mayor is dealing with issues like this to some extent. And at the same time, we're seeing new developments being announced downtown very recently. You've talked very boldly about growing the city of Milwaukee's population. What's your level of optimism about Milwaukee's ability to grow?
Look, I think that with the change in leadership that we have, and my desire to get to yes and push departments to make the investments in terms of our infrastructure and have policies that encourage business growth, and not just business growth, but other development, I think that we certainly can get there. Like, I've been watching, Milwaukee's population slide over the course of the past, 20 years, better than that. I'm a little older now, better than that or so. So I want to reverse the trend, and by my actions as an elected official, as a member of the common council, as a council president, and as mayor, I've been working to achieve those ends. You talk about, some of the things that are coming up right now in the city. The largest residential tower in the state, the Couture, is coming out of the ground, literally, down on the lake. And after 10 years of, being in development, it was stalling. It was going to fail. But as council president, I picked it up late nights, early mornings, and got it across the finish line. And now it's rising. Milwaukee Tool, we talk about attracting and retaining talent, especially talent in tech. Those jobs were new jobs that were going to exist somewhere. To me, it is not good enough for them to just exist in the region. They need to exist in the city. I want people to choose the city every single time. And even though there were obstacles here, in the government, we worked to get past those, and we got the deal done. And those jobs are going to be right here in the city of Milwaukee. There are other things that have happened as well, but I'm a huge proponent of those things, and I'm going to continue to be a huge proponent of those things, working to get businesses to yes, because it presents an opportunity for us to attract and retain talent, and it presents an opportunity for us to be able to grow our population. Cities to me are not supposed to be just pass-throughs. They're not supposed to be, something that you hop on a freeway and drive through from one suburb to another. I love the suburbs, quite frankly, but I'm mayor of the city. And cities are supposed to they're supposed to evoke an emotion. They're supposed to be vibrant. You're supposed to feel a city and experience it. And that's the sort of direction that I want to go in.
So companies like Milwaukee Tool do an incredible job of recruiting talent from outside our region to our region. As we sort of hit a new phase of this, where some people can work remotely, they could work anywhere they want, or we want them to move here to work for our companies here. Sort of, what's your pitch to somebody who doesn't live here? Why might they want to move here for a career opportunity or a family opportunity or anything that might come up?
Yeah, well, if you don't live here, especially if you're a remote worker, I mean, there's no other place better than Milwaukee to go and work. I mean, we're entering, the summer season, and look, if you are from here, from this region, full well already that there's no place beats Milwaukee in the summer, right? It just doesn't happen. And I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of summers, in other cities in the United States, in DC and in New York and the like. Nothing touches Milwaukee in the summer. Right. And so if you're a remote worker and you're looking for an opportunity to go to another place, another community, another city to live in with a lower cost of living, so you can make your big Manhattan bucks or your big downtown Chicago bucks in the loop, and you want a lower cost of living with all the amenities that you get in these larger cities, the top tier cities, New York, Chicago, LA, you can come to Milwaukee and you can receive those things in terms of sports, in terms of summer festivals like Summerfest and the ethnic festivals that we have here. We're working to build out a biking infrastructure. I continue to push the Department of Public Works in that direction. We're on America's fresh coast, so you have access to Lake Michigan, and we're working every single year in order to make access to our waterways more friendly to public users across the city. So there's a lot of upside to living in a place like Milwaukee, and I want people to think about it, and I want them to be encouraged to move here.
So I do want to go back to the idea of the dire need for a local funding source that you mentioned earlier, and maybe run through some slides here about just sort of the nature of the challenge we're facing right here. Pensions is a thing we're very focused on with the idea of pushing for legislation that might allow for a sales tax increase. What are we seeing right here, Mayor Johnson?
What you're seeing right here is the fact that over the course of the next several years, the city of Milwaukee's pension obligation is going to essentially double, which puts a tremendous pressure on our finances and our ability to deliver services. Unless the state, which controls the ability of local governments to be able to raise additional revenue, unless they actually partner with us and allow us to have shared revenue that is indexed to inflation, that meets what it ought to be and not what it was more than 20 years ago, or near 20 years ago rather, we're going to be in a tough spot if we don't become competitive like every other major city in the United States and have the option to raise revenue locally outside of the property tax. We're going to be in a rough situation. And as the pension costs increase that you're seeing there on the slide, we've got to be able to come up with the money to pay for that. The only way that we're going to be able to pay for that is to have deep cuts in staff, and only people do things, as you know, right? So that means that service delivery in the city of Milwaukee for the people who live here, our residents, for our commuters who come in from the suburbs to do business or to work in the city of Milwaukee, or for our visitors. And we've got a sizable number of people who visit the state of Wisconsin every single year. I believe a quarter or 20%, I believe, come to the city of Milwaukee when they're visiting the state, the services that all of those folks receive are going to go down so that we can make this pension payment. And it's because we have been handcuffed for so many years and not able to raise the revenue that's necessary just to keep pace with increasing costs, whether it's pension, whether it's wages and benefits for staff. We're not competitive that way either with some of the other local municipalities or the private sector. So we need the state to be our partner in order to solve this massive problem that we have in front of us right now.
Then briefly, sort of a more tangible thing that you can look at is just the number of police officers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, only people do things, right? And the police department is obviously, it's the largest budget expenditure that we have at the city. And you see the numbers right there. I mean, they've consistently gone down over the years, down to this new low of average sworn strength that we have. Look, I want to have the adequate number of police in the city, but I'm going to be responsible and I need a way to pay for it. And the only way that I'm going to be able to pay for it is if we have partners, in Madison that help us to make sure we have the revenues necessary to be able to pay for the size of police that we need in this community. I cannot do it alone, unfortunately, just because of the way that our revenue structure is set up. So I need, your partnership. And again, MMAC has been a great partner. Its members have been great partners with telling that story to legislators so that we can get the revenue that we need in order to provide the services that, again, our residents, our commuters, our visitors both deserve as well as expect.
Now, for people on this webinar who don't know, you and County Executive Crowley have worked together quite a bit to reach across the aisle and try to build real connections, not just compromising on legislation or anything like that. But it seems like trying to build actual connections with people on the other side of the aisle. Can you talk about those efforts and how they sort of blend into the idea of bidding for the RNC in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. When I ran for this office, I'm a political realist, right? I understand that there's not going to be any opportunity for us to be able to move the ball forward unless we have buy-in and support from not just, Governor Evers, who I have a great working relationship with, but also from Republican members of the Assembly and the Senate. I mean, they control the legislature. They have for 10 years. They likely are going to control it for some time in the future. Like, you can either, throw stuff at the wall or be upset, or you can actually try to work with them in order to move the ball forward. I choose the latter because I actually want to deliver for, the residents of the city, and the county executive wants to do the same thing for Milwaukee County. So I campaigned for this office talking about the need to repair the broken relationship with Madison and having basically a cut in the capital. And I've been having, conversations, relationship building conversations with legislators, ever since I came into the office. I met with Speaker Voss, in his office in the Capitol, I think within a month of assuming the office of mayor, acting mayor that is. Speaker Voss was just present in my office here in the city of Milwaukee just last week. A couple of weeks before that, Senator Devin LeMahieu, the leader in the state Senate, was also here as well. So, we're actively working to build those relationships. And that's what this is about. A lot of this is about relationship building, and trying to find a common sense solution, some compromise. And for too long, that just has been something that it seems has not been worked towards. But that's what I want to get to, because that's the only way to move the ball forward. I didn't get elected here just to, say, hey, I'm a Democrat and throw my hands up because, Republicans won't play ball. I got elected here to try to move the ball forward. And that's exactly what I intend to do.
I want to take a couple audience questions, but first, quickly, you're Milwaukee's first Black mayor. What does that mean to you, and what do you think that might mean to a young kid growing up in the city right now?
I am Milwaukee's first elected Black mayor, but when I was running for the office, I never, touted that I was going to be the Black, right, first Black mayor. Marvin Pratt, nearly 20 years ago took that title of first Black mayor. So that's something that's already, been tried and true. I ran for mayor because I wanted to do the job. I wanted to make a positive impact in my community, and I believe Milwaukee in its potential, and that's what I'm doing. I think, though, that because I am the first elected, it certainly does give some hope and some opportunity for kids, because kids will be what they see. You know what I mean? And if you're growing up like I did in Milwaukee, and there are several young people who still do in those rough, depressed neighborhoods, look, your whole world is basically 4 points. It's home, it's school, it's the corner store, it's the relative's house. It's four points, just like the city block. And my dad told me to get off the block when I was a kid, and I did that, and I got here. But if you stay on the block, and the only thing you see is death and destruction, despair, and windows that are busted out at businesses, or you don't see your own reflection, in your own community or places of power and stuff like that. That's detrimental. So now they see me, in this position, and they think, hey, now I can be mayor too. And I think about my son, who was born in 2010 and spent a number of years with President Obama in office. That was his first president, was a Black man. So to him, and a generation of kids across the country, it's not uncommon. Like it's commonplace for there to be people of color in positions of authority, even president of the United States. And now folks are able to see that. Young kids are able to see that at the local level, because they can see their own reflection in this office.
I know we have you for maybe a couple more minutes. Want to take an audience question or two. One is, any news on the 2024 RNC decision? We've been saying a couple weeks, but we've been saying that for a couple weeks now.
Look, I wish that I had news to break to you right now. The only thing I can tell you is that we've put our best foot forward. We really, really have. As you know, I've been a deep-throated supporter of the RNC and went to DC to do the final pitch with Visit and Senator Ron Johnson and some of the other folks that have been supportive of the bid here. The ball is now that I laid out a marker and got the Common Council to come to my position on accepting the framework for the contract. Now the ball's in the RNC's hand, and we'll see what decision they make between the city of Milwaukee and Nashville. But I believe that they will choose the city of Milwaukee.
Maybe one last question before we let you go. Something we hear a lot: would raising taxes actually be a detriment to attracting people here? Why would it not be a detriment?
Would raising, like the sales tax?
If you raise the sales tax, would that be an incentive for people not to move?
No, I don't think so. Look, our sales tax presently is extremely low when you look at other cities across the country. I mean, I'm not advocating this, on this call or anything like that, but I mean, there is space to raise the sales tax here a number of percentage points higher, and we still could be lower than a number of cities across the country. So we've got a lower cost of living, and our sales tax burden is extremely low. And raising the sales tax, we're going to use a third of that to push down property taxes as well. So there will be some additional benefit for property tax payers here too. So no, I don't think that'd be a detriment to folks.
Mayor Johnson, I know you have an 11:30, so we thank you for your time and your perspective here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.